Today on the Failing Up podcast, we have Nicole Zuber with us, and she discusses the difference between burnout and how being tired of a task is different than being tired of how things are done. Let's jump in.
Welcome to another episode of the Failing Up podcast, humble lessons in life and business. Joined here by my amazing co-host, Dusty Oglesby. What's up, brother?
Good to be here.
Dolly for president?
In Texas. Well, normally I come to you guys in Nashville and we do the podcast. I appreciate you guys coming to Texas.
That's right.
But I wanted to represent you guys
Nashville.
anyway. You're welcome.
Yeah. I think Dolly'd make an amazing president.
I think he'd be incredible. Let's put that out there.
And the amazing Bethany voice. Bethany, thanks for joining us.
So excited to
Love it
be
when
here.
You can hop in. This room was conducive for four of us, so it's exciting.
Yeah, I get a guest spot a little
We
bit.
need to upgrade our Nashville gig though,
That's it.
because it's not quite this sweet.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like,
we got.
We're going to put one of these in our in the new office.
yeah,
Let's do it.
I like
Right.
it.
And then the amazing Miss Nicole Zuber. Thank you for joining us, our
my
guest
pleasure.
today.
Yay.
My pleasure. Y'all are too kind.
Awesome. Well, introduce yourself. Tell our listeners what makes you so amazing, why we love you so much. But
Well, I can't answer that. Why do you love me? Why do you love me so much?
I love you because you're authentic and real and you're no BS. And
Sure.
you are an
Mhm.
amazing coach for some of our leaders. And you show up 100% every way, every time we ask. And so I'm just always grateful to be in business with you and have a relationship with you. But what do other people, tell us who you are. What do you do?
Okay. So you like how I spun that, right?
I do.
So
Yeah. It's the coach in you.
can't help it. So I'm Nicole Zuber. I'm an executive operations coach for MAPS Coaching and also the community leader for KW Operations.
Yeah, you guys have just dialed in the systems and the models. You coach our my business partner Lauren Garner in a company called Top Operations, right? And the level that we've seen her grow. I've told her this story, and you and I talked about this a couple of years ago when we first met. I wasn't convinced she was the right person to lead an operations team, but she was who I had at the moment, and we started developing her. And I'm always so grateful because it's her willingness to be coached, but it's also your influence with her that she has shown up and developed. You know, I told her probably a year ago, I was like, you're absolutely the right person at this point for that role, and since become a business partner and us starting an operations company. And I give you a ton of that credit because I always say I'm not always the best person to be coaching and leading people. And so coming alongside of people like you and being able to watch you influence her and make her so amazing, you've done a phenomenal job.
Well, thank you. And it's been a privilege and an honor to watch her evolve. And I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure. It was too early into the relationship. And you nailed it, like the coaching and the ability to be coached and the ability, like the willingness to lean in and open your mind and do the uncomfortable things. She's done all of that, and watching us go from our team Huffacre group to the expansion team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To now a platform has been like, I have goosebumps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Each one of them will
Yeah.
their own set of
Growth.
challenges.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about failing and a lot on this podcast, but to think about one of the things I see top performers do a lot is not be patient enough to let that play out. And, and I'll say I don't know that I did it right, other than I didn't have the time to go look for someone else. And so allowing that to kind of happen, I think just goes to show you that with the right people, I think a lot of the things that we get right are more a function of time than skill, right? Just over a long enough time period, if we're all willing to fail long enough, we'll start to improve and get things better. And then you get so far down the path that, like, I don't want to go back and change that now, right? Which is why I'd rather have a business partner that I can stay in business with versus an employee that may leave tomorrow, right?
Right.
Because you invest so much time and energy into that.
Time, energy, money, like even the partnership with coaching, like it's a journey.
Yeah.
And you're so right, David, because most people, like true entrepreneurs, are very driven, let's go break through the walls, et cetera, and have very little patience. And running a business is completely polar opposite from being a really aggressive salesperson.
Well,
That's right.
You nailed it. I remember my first sales job. Man, I thought I was God's gift to sales, and I learned some humbling lessons during that time of my life. But I remember hearing, like, because I was their top sales performer, and they're like, your top sales performer doesn't always make your best manager or leader. And I'm like, I got this, right? Like, don't tell me, right? And I remember kind of learning that lesson a little bit. We see it a lot at level 8. One of the values of a platform is you see so many agents out there. You don't think you're going to spend 2 or 3 or 4 years trying to find that right person because you're like, oh, I found them. And then you learn that everyone has shortcomings, right? Myself included, and they let you down in some way. And I don't know if as business owners we're prepared for that and allowing that to kind of grow, which is what I love about what Bethany has and what we have at level 8 is you no longer have to go solve the operations piece, right? Like you can just lean on top ops to be your operations piece. Maybe just until you do find that person, but at least that every bucket of the business is kind of nailed down. So you have a safety net, right? Like you have the ability, like you can go and expand tomorrow with level 8's platform.
Sure.
Because of the people that are there, we just kind of looked up and said, like, you have an amazing person like a Lauren who can run operations independent. Otherwise, you spend 3 or 4 years going through, maybe longer, right?
Well, and to your point, I mean, as a coach, I'm sure you see this all the time. I think we all love to talk about talent, right? We love to go find talent. But the most taxing patient piece is developing talent, right? People can be very, very talented, but watching the development process A to B is taxing, right?
It's A to Z. Sister.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. And so then you're as business owners, I don't think we want to be patient for that. Like you can see this talent there, but who wants to take the time to develop it? And as a coach, I mean, right? That's what you do, and sitting with it and then reap the benefits across all these companies with these amazing people.
Yeah. And the ability to scale, obviously with operations, like when I think of when we all got into business together, was that 3, 4 years?
Like 3.5, 4 years ago, something like that.
Something like that. And taking the systems and processes that, Lauren and we built out as partnership and obviously running things through you and being able to see it evolve into THG Network and into now Top Ops, which is part of level 8. It's just that the timeless systems models, extraordinary client experience, transaction over transaction, and how we set ourselves apart. Top Ops plug here is we do pride ourselves on those reviews and referrals that we pass back to the agent.
Yeah, and that's, I'll be honest, you very specific to Top Ops, but you're the one that convinced me that it could be done because, Gary always says, like, if you're not going to get an ROI on it, why would you spend your money on it? And I always thought in my mind, operations was it's a necessary part of business, right? It's just an expense. And I remember having a conversation with you and like, no, we can actually hold that accountable to getting you an ROI. And I'm like, nah, I didn't believe you. I didn't. I'm like, whatever. All right, go do it. Let's see.
That's
right?
exactly what you said. Whatever, go do it.
Yeah. And then, well, I tell people all the time. Like,
and I was like, game on.
Yeah.
Reason
I don't believe
that
you. Go do it, though. That would be great. That would be great, though. Well, and I think, though, that's why it's so important what you do, Nicole, because you said it really well earlier, right? Just because you can be a top salesperson, which is so much of, our company, right? You got some incredibly talented salespeople, and then they got to build a business, right? And you're like, oh, well, I don't know the first clue about that, but I can sell a lot, right? And what you do is just so unbelievably vital and to see the progression, right, that's happening. And we're just talking about us. Yeah. Like, that's not even counting all the countless people that you have poured into and shown and worked through just, your talent, your gift of seeing all that. Right. One thing I pride ourselves on of what y'all have built is this, I always say like contract, it drives me crazy when agents say like, I want to solve it myself. No, you don't. Like that's not something, you didn't go to real estate school or get into a business to solve that. What Lauren and Top Ops are able to do though, is it is that referral piece, right? Like they do a great job on the process of contract to close, but the ability to gain referrals or be intentional and strategic, like you'll be satisfied with what you're paying for the result you're getting in contract to close. When they pull a referral out of that process for you, no one can compete with that, right? Like that's
turns into an investment, not an expense.
Yep. And the 5-star reviews, again, that just blew my mind when y'all pulled that. Like, what do we get? Like 500 and some 5-star reviews within right? It was crazy.
2 months, 3 months.
Yeah, we got literally within 60 days, we had closed, I think it was 16 transactions off those reviews. Yep. And so you go like take an average of $160,000 in revenue just organically off of those reviews, right? It wasn't anything other than just people finding them and going like, wow, right? Like, and so I go like, man, what a simple ROI right there.
Good thing you told her, go do that.
Go do that's right.
That was a good idea.
That's always the best.
That was
all
a
the
great
best
idea.
That
was a great idea that Nicole had.
Good luck.
You said go do.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So what I love about the reviews and referrals, especially from an operations standpoint, is like, okay, with sales, we know the KPIs, we know the leading indicators, the cause and result, et cetera. And I feel like I'm super passionate, and that's what we're doing through KW Ops community, is super passionate about bringing KPIs to the operations side. Because since time, I mean, administrators have been put in a box, shoved there, now stay there and go push paper. And bottom line, the reviews and the referrals are a lag measure of delivering an extraordinary client experience, because you're not going to receive them. And more importantly, they're not going to ask. Your administrative staff, they're not going to ask if they're not clear on the value that they provided.
Well, in any business, the first thing I'm looking for is evidence of success. Once I have it, now I can hold it accountable. Now I can say like, nope, you can't tell me it can't be done because look at what they've done over here. And that becomes really, to me, any business I go into, I typically go into it with a theory, and then we execute and we evolve. And as soon as I can find that evidence of success with someone, like I find myself like clinging to it. We just saw this with Teamridge. We got a guy out of Nashville named Mike Reister that's been doing Teamridge. And we went through several people. And now Mike has, I think, like 150. He just wrote a $3.5 million offer. I don't know if it's finalized yet. But I look up and I go, okay, now we have evidence of success, right? Like if you work it hard enough and do the right things, it's now it can't be I don't know if it can be done. Right. Now we have proof that it can be done. Now it's like the 4-minute mile, right? Mindset, right?
Exactly.
Once you realize it can be done, now all of a sudden everybody starts going, okay,
does it.
Right?
Right.
You know, what were the activities that got you there? I don't want to get all the way to the end of the podcast without talking about failure, which is what we were here to discuss. I know you and I can talk forever.
I like that whole success part though.
Yeah.
But I have no doubt along the way there were moments of, what?
Yeah.
Like, that's what we're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. There had to be.
Yeah. Lauren does a really good job of just telling me to be quiet. Like, she's one of the few people that I'm in business with that she can just be like, no, we're not going to do that, David. Okay.
She's great.
That's what operators do.
Yeah.
Like that's why they get paid the big bucks, is because they have the relationship and the confidence to slow our leaders, our rainmakers down.
Yeah. So help us define failure. When you think of failure, what does that look like to you as a coach? Where do you see that show up?
Well, it's not. So I tell anybody that comes into my world one-on-one, you have the ability and you have the right to fail in this environment. It's just when you keep doing this, when we keep making the same mistakes over and over again, that's not okay. Right. So failure, it's not, as long as we learn from it and make the changes that are necessary, it's not failure.
Yeah. We talked about that on episode 1 or 2 about how do you, when you see them doing it over and over again and not adjusting, right? And not, I see some really talented people that just get so fixed on that's got to be the way. And yet you, from the outside looking in, you go, well, it doesn't seem like the way.
Right. This is the 6th time you've done the same way.
Result.
Yeah.
How do you address that with someone?
Yeah. So I had the privilege of spending time with Gary Keller 2 weeks ago. And when somebody keeps failing over and over again, that you find burnout. And Gary posed a question: are you sick and tired of how it's done, or are you sick and tired of doing the task or the failure? He didn't use that word, but I'm using this as metaphorically. So, are you sick and tired of like the failure, or are you sick and tired of how you are doing it, how it's done?
Right.
So.
It's
that was.
He frames that, which I've always found mind stressing is, or what does Jay say? Are you doing it the best that you can do it, or are you doing it the best that it can be done?
That's right.
And I always wrestle with that because they're like, well, isn't the best I can do it the best that, like, isn't it the same thing?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But it's not,
it's
right?
not.
No. Really unpack
Not
it.
when you're thinking as a business owner.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's where I look up and go like, oh, I don't do anything the best that it could be done.
Right.
And so then, okay, well, let's go find the person that is awesome at this thing, right?
Well, that's you doing the best that it can be done, is going and finding that person. So I would contest you. Yeah. I wouldn't say you don't do any. You're really great at identifying the talent, pouring into them, having the patience to let the relationship.
Thank you
evolve.
for that. But I have somebody specifically right now that we hired, and I've just done such a poor job of executing a 30, 60, 90, of really giving them clear direction. And I find myself frustrated. And yet I look up and I go like, and I still don't know why I won't just sit down and do it. I don't know if it's just, I've done it 3 or 4 times in that role, and I still just keep looking up and going, let's just go hire somebody else. But then I go like, now I'm kind of starting to look up and go, well, it's not going to matter if I'm not going to give them clear direction and spend time developing them. And so
we have proof of that too in the conversation we were just having about Lauren, right? When you first said, hey, I don't think she's the right one. Imagine where it would be today if you would run in that direction rather than going, no, we need to lean in, bring Nicole in. And now, oh, no, we got the right one. It was just the process of getting there. And I love how you said it, Nicole. It's, hey, you have full grace to fail here. It's if you continually do it. Yeah. Right? Because then now we really are failing. But what does Gary say? If you're really not failing, you're actually learning to succeed. If you're learning to succeed, you keep doing the same thing over and over again. Right?
Choosing.
Yeah.
Choice.
Yeah. And I think that we find people telling themselves stories. I see it with coaching clients, and it's like a podcast of quoting Gary, but he says that, if you fight for your reasons hard enough, I'll let you keep them. Right. And I've found myself with my children lately saying that, right? Like, okay, like this is the story you want to tell yourself, right? If this is the road we're going to, okay, you hang on to that, and then you come see me and let's see how that
let me know.
out, right?
Yeah.
If that's lateral all across the board.
Yeah. So where do you see, think back maybe personally or a client in the last few years where you've experienced failure or seen failure show up? I know you're, the KW operations world, and getting that up off the ground couldn't have been easy. A lot of the stuff you do in leading from a Keller Williams perspective, but where have you seen failure show up maybe in the last 2 or 3 years that you can now look back and see like, okay, like I understand kind of why maybe God put me through that, or why I had to go through that experience because it helped me get to this point. You got anything like that?
So for me personally, or through a client?
Whichever.
Oh man. Well, since we're going there,
we got a couch here.
I'm like a little therapy session. So I've made profusely terrible mistakes in this industry. I've been in it for 20 something years. And I was 23 years old when I started. I didn't know my head from my tail. And when we started our team, my husband, who's my business partner, and he's a 3rd generation agent on both sides of his family.
Wow.
So parents and both sets of grandparents retired from the industry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so we had we were at a boutique brokerage, and we had this one book, Red in Color, Gary something, man with a mustache wrote that. And we would use that carte blanche.
Yeah.
And we were building. And we were over leveraged and undereducated, I will say. And then I don't know if y'all remember 2009. Yeah, that happened. We lost everything. We were like short selling left and right and home tending short sales for clients. And it was the greatest lesson in my career that I'm going back there to lead up to where we are today, because we didn't even know how we were going to put food on the table for our babies. I remember going in the couch and looking for quarters, trying to like ramen noodles, short sales. I was carrying 30 short sales at a time and going from king of the hill, whatever. My ego was so big I couldn't even breathe. It needed to get shut down. And
never feels good though, right?
No.
That's I think in that moment, right? Like I don't think anyone can understand the pain and the emotion that you're going through in those moments until you've had to experience a little bit yourself.
Yeah.
Alongside your business partner, who's your spouse.
Yeah.
That was like, I don't know how our marriage survived that. Like going back is like, wow.
Yeah. Now it's not only outside your 4 walls, it's in your 4 walls.
Oh yeah. So
every day.
So it was 2011. We were in misery for 3 years. 2011 when we met our OP, Erica Hill in Boise, Idaho. And that moment on, we've never looked back. And the first month or so, I'm really grateful that Erica did what she did. She put me under her wing. Like she even invited me to her home. She was showing me things. And looking back, I'm like, she did that to give me possibility, like to show me possibility. And she gave me this tool, and I was like really set. Like I'm so we've lost everything and I don't know where I stand. And she brought me out this thing called a net worth calculator. And I immediately went home and I like plugged it all in, and there was a negative $842,000. And like I said, we'd never foreclosed on a property. We didn't file BK, but we short sold everything. And that put a new fire in my soul. And if I was dead set and like hell or high water, we were going to turn that number into a positive. And it gave me a new why, a new mission, a new reason, because I promised myself we would never go through that again, ever.
Yeah.
And Gary says you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. And within 5 years, that number was a positive.
I love that. I love I think the beauty of that coming to Keller Williams. I think if you haven't experienced that culture and that love of being a part of the Keller Williams ecosystem, I hear people talking about splits and you go like, you haven't experienced that yet, because it's not about all that other stuff, right? Like all that other stuff is what you're going to use to compare yourself. But like when someone truly cares about you and puts their arm around you and wants to see you succeed, that's the piece I love about this company that we all get to be a part of. I want to be respectful of time. I know you respectful of your time. I know it's a busy week here at Mega Camp. Just in wrapping up, I'd love to ask kind of looking back, right? When you get to the end, you're looking back. What do you anticipate might be your biggest regret?
That's a tough one, Dave. Not thought of that. Now I'm going to ask more questions. Regret where?
I don't know. I think what I want to understand for our listeners is, a lot of us have similar answers here and kind of ways to wire around it. So, you're 150 years old with the advancement in medicine and you get to all live for a long time. And you look back at your life, both in business and personal, right? What is it that could potentially be what you look back and go like, man, I wish I hadn't done it quite like that.
Yeah, I can answer that. That I wouldn't have just done. I wish I would. I can say that now. That I did not deny my strength zone.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
So I resisted operations for a really long time. I have the unicorn DNA gift, if you will, of I sold a lot. I produced a lot. Even before real estate, I was cross-sell champion of the world. Sell. And I am always on the back end, like making the functionality, clean and scaled, right? So I resisted operations for a really long time. And when I became a MAPS coach, I found myself, and Diana Kokoska always said, you grow into where you ought to go.
Yeah.
You grow into where you ought to go. And I found myself so I was coaching production and I was helping these, people get it off. And alongside that, they were also building a business, which is operations, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I found myself growing, and I looked up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm coaching all of these, operations and rainmakers today is what I found.
Right.
And so my husband is so phenomenal, always helping me get to where it is that I ought to go. He sees it. And then because it comes from him, sometimes I'm like, no, resistant. Yeah. resist. It has to be my idea.
Yeah. So, well, and I think a lot of us, can share in that, right? That, who we think we want to be and who we naturally are. I think when we lean into who we naturally are, we find some amazing things happen there, and it's better than maybe we thought it was going to be, right?
So I wish I didn't. I wish I would have taken action a lot sooner.
Yeah, and that's probably the most common answer, especially today that we've heard, is just that we'd have done something sooner. And I always try to encourage people to, our listeners, we ask that question for the purpose of understanding that we all have these similar thoughts.
Sure.
And there's things that we can do today to start to wire around for that, right? And start to anticipate. It's the experience that your husband gave us of writing a letter to your future self that helps kind of unpack some of that what ifs, and just being intentional about having that conversation with yourself of, 10 years from now, what is that letter to myself going to look like? What age are my kids going to be? What age is my spouse going to be? Where am I going to be in my journey? And we can be so intentional about a business and writing out a 1-3-5 and a business plan. But one of my ahas has been, where's my 1-3-5 for successful children, right? Where's my 1-3-5 for being a Superman husband, right? Where are those things? And those things to me are the most important. Why haven't I been as intentional about those as I have been about growing organizations, right? And so, yeah, just a good chance for people to stop and think about wherever you're at on your journey, wherever you're at. If you're going through failure at the moment, there's an opportunity to learn from this and know that, in order to have the mountains, you got to have the valleys, and that it is a part of the journey, right? And as frustrating as it may be, this too shall pass, right? Things will change, and we're all in it together. So lean into people around you, find some support. And if you are up on the mountain right now and life is your very best, just know that this too shall pass, right?
There's a valley on the other side.
Turn around and find somebody to help at the moment, because you'll want help again one day, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks.
All right.